Welcome back, everyone. Today we're learning about suspense. So hopefully you have recorded your first and last name, reviewed the definition of suspense, which is the feeling of excitement or tension that makes you want to find out what will happen next. I have my nice little GIF or GIF of SpongeBob here, right? Nail biting, right? You want to know what's going to happen. It's a page turner, right? Those cliffhangers, what's going to happen. Hopefully you already watched the short video, Chaperon Rouge. That is French for the French version of Red Riding Hood. This was a futuristic sort of version of the classic tale of the Little Red Riding Hood. So hopefully you found 3 events or examples that added to suspense in this film. If you didn't find 3, you might want to go back and watch it again. So thinking about what happens, kind of what that, looking at the visuals. So how do they depict the wolf character? What are some of the things that the Little Red Riding Hood character has to go through? Think about some of the sounds and the music and how that contributes to the film as well. And we're picking up with the big break. So here's a short story, and again, we're going to analyze the short story for plot and suspense. The big break. Jeffrey had had his first starring role in kindergarten, playing a talking stone in a class play. From the moment he heard the applause and took his bows, he knew he wanted to be an actor. He doodled his name as it would look on a marquee. In his mind, he rehearsed his acceptance speech to the Academy Awards. "I want to thank my agent," he imagined himself saying to the crowd. By 6th grade, he was used to starring in school productions. He played Romeo in this year's Junior Shakespeare Festival. His brother said he was probably the first Romeo in the history of theater to have braces. Jeffrey liked everything about acting except for his brother's comments about it. Brad was not interested in acting. Jeffrey dreamed of going to California or New York when he got older. Meanwhile, he read the trades at the library, the newspapers and magazines of the acting business. He couldn't believe it when he saw that there was going to be an open casting call in his own Midwestern city. He begged his parents to take him, but they worked on Saturdays and they couldn't take the day off. He was forced to ask his older brother, the critic. The part called for a boy who looked about 14. Jeffrey figured he could pass. Unlike Brad, Jeffrey looked older than his age. Brad, on the other hand, at 16 looked more like 14. The boys arrived early at the theater where the auditions were taking place. There were already over 200 kids there. Jeffrey picked up his application. Brad picked up one too, just for fun, he said. Each of them then studied the short script they'd been handed. Like all the other kids, they mouthed the words over and over. Some kids found quiet spaces to read their lines aloud with all the right emotion. Jeffrey asked Brad to listen to his reading. "Okay, but you have to listen to mine too." "Deal," Jeffrey answered. Then he read, and, as usual, he was good. Next, it was Brad's turn. Jeffrey couldn't believe what he was seeing and hearing. Why hadn't Brad ever tried out for a play? Where had he gotten all this talent all of a sudden? He asked his brother, "Why haven't you auditioned before?" "I was waiting for something big," Brad replied. So moving to the questions, which is not a conflict in this story? So use the process of elimination, and 3 of these are not a conflict. 3 of these are a conflict, and 1 is not. So Jeffrey very much wants the part he and Brad are auditioning for. Brad may be more suitable for the part than Jeffrey. In the past, Brad has discouraged Jeffrey's acting ambitions, and Jeffrey played a talking stone in Jeffrey played a talking stone in a kindergarten class play. So 3 of those are problems. 3 of those are conflicts. Which one of those is not a conflict or problem in this story? So take a moment and choose your answer. This next question is our focus here, suspense. What is the suspense in this story? What's causing tension? What's making us feel a little bit uneasy? What are we trying to find out? Is it, will Brad be willing to drive Jeffrey to the audition? Will Jeffrey learn his lines quickly enough? Will Brad get the part Jeffrey wants? Or has Brad been critical of Jeffrey? The next question says, Jeffrey seems to be the kind of person who, so this is kind of like a characterization question, which we'll learn about soon. He seems to be the kind of person who knows what he wants and works hard to get it, doesn't want to share his success with anyone else, always wants to look older than his real age, or is too shy to be himself with others. And then our last question about this story says, which plot details establish that acting is very important to Jeffrey? Is it from the moment in kindergarten when he heard the applause and took his bows, Jeffrey wanted to be an actor? Jeffrey read the newspapers and magazines of the acting business. Jeffrey liked everything about acting except for his brother's comments about it, or all of the above. So which of those details show that acting is important to Jeffrey? If two of them seem like they fit, then probably the third one might too, right? So you might want to consider that all of the above option. And our last question is actually a free write. So I want you to try to expand your writing here and write several paragraphs, at least 3. But I want you to choose one of those sentence starters to complete a quick write that includes suspense. So all of these sentence starters kind of lend themselves to a suspenseful story. So just choose one that kind of speaks to you. Or if you have another idea for a suspenseful story, that's fine too. Just make sure you're keeping it school appropriate, right? So the first one says, I decided to follow the huge footprints along the trail. So if you choose that one, what happens next? Where do those footprints lead? The next one states, I crossed my fingers and opened the box. Suddenly, what's inside? If you remember, we were kind of studying that Pandora's box, maybe something along those lines, maybe something different. And then the final option is, my heart seemed to stop beating as I opened the door. Okay, so what's going to be behind that door? So you choose one of those and pick up that story where it left off. And I will meet you again. Part 2 of our lesson will be reading a story called The Horse Snake. So we will analyze suspense in that story in our next lesson. I will see you guys then. Bye.